After that message appeared, the calls didn't stop. They changed. For the first time since it began, the days passed without a single vibration. No missed calls, no silence on the other end, nothing. At first, the quiet felt like relief. Then it started to feel deliberate. He kept his phone with him constantly, on the table, in his pocket, face up at night, not waiting for it to ring, waiting to notice why it wasn't. Without the calls, everything else became louder. The hum of electricity, the rhythm of traffic outside, the sound of his own breathing when he tried to sleep. He realized something unsettling. The calls had never been the loudest thing in the room. They had only pointed out what was already there. He replayed the notification in his head. Listening is a choice, not a threat, not a warning, permission. He started paying attention to his routine, when he woke up, when he ate, when he checked the time without meaning to. Every night, his eyes still went to the clock. 12:16, 12:17. Nothing happened. And somehow, that felt worse. On the fourth night of silence, he understood what had changed. Before, the calls decided when to arrive. Now, they were waiting for him to decide whether he was still listening. He stopped distracting himself. No television, no music, no scrolling, just the room and the phone, face up. When the vibration finally came, it startled him. Not because it was loud, because it felt earned. 12:17 a.m. once, he answered immediately. There was no silence, just a familiar calm, settling into the space between his thoughts. You didn't stop listening, the voice said. He swallowed. No, he replied. I stopped reacting. A pause, then. That's worse. For the first time, he realized the truth. The message hadn't ended the calls. It had moved him to the next part of them. After that night, he stopped treating the calls as interruptions. He started treating them as responses. He listened to the old recordings again, not for voices, not for sounds, for timing. He noticed something simple. The calls never interrupted him. They waited. They arrived when he was already still, already alone, already paying attention. He tested it. One night, he left the television on. 12:17 passed. No call. The next night, he sat in silence. 12:17. The phone vibrated. That's when he understood the first rule. The calls don't arrive to get your attention. They arrive after you've already given it. He noticed another pattern. Movement didn't matter. He could be in a different room, a different building. Even outside, if his mind was quiet, the call came. If it wasn't, nothing happened. The third rule took longer. He only noticed it after replaying the audio with headphones. The calls didn't respond to what he said. They responded to what he noticed. Every time his focus shifted, the sound on the other end shifted with it. Not delayed, immediate. Are you listening now? The voice asked one night. Yes, he said. That's not what I asked, it replied. He realized then why running hadn't worked. Distance had never mattered. Attention did. So, what happens if I stop answering? He asked. The answer came calmly. You already tried that. And you kept listening. The phone screen changed. Not a call. Not a message. Just a time. 12:17. Then another line appeared beneath it. Listening doesn't end when the call does. That was the moment he understood something deeper. The calls weren't the event. They were the proof. Proof that once you start noticing patterns, something else starts noticing you, and it doesn't stop just because you want it to. He stopped asking whether it was real. That question had already answered itself. Now he needed proof. Not for fear, for certainty. He began recording everything, not just the calls, the room, the street outside, the hours before and after. He didn't label the files with dates anymore. He labeled them with times: 12:14, 12:16, 12:17. At first, nothing stood out, just quiet rooms, distant traffic, normal sounds that meant nothing on their own. Then he noticed something small, a sound in the call. Barely there. A low, uneven hum. He compared it to the room recording. They didn't match. The hum appeared in the call before it appeared in the room, not by much. A few seconds, enough to notice, not enough to explain. The next night, he tried again. He recorded the hallway outside his apartment. Then the call. In the call, he heard footsteps, slow, measured. In the hallway recording, the footsteps came later, always later. He didn't panic. He checked his equipment, replaced cables, changed devices. The result was the same. The calls weren't echoing the world. They were arriving early. He tested one last thing. He moved a glass from the table to the sink, carefully, quietly. Then he waited. At 12:17, the phone vibrated. He answered. In the background of the call, he heard a soft clink, glass touching ceramic. He froze. The sound stopped. 5 seconds later, he heard it in the room, his own hand, completing the movement. He sat down slowly, because there was no version of this that was coincidence. The calls weren't recording what happened. They were capturing what was about to happen. He replayed the audio again. This time he didn't listen for sounds. He listened for space. The calls always felt slightly wider than the room, like the microphone was positioned just a little behind him. That was when he noticed something else. Breathing. Not his. Always present, always calm, as if whoever was listening already knew how the moment would end. He whispered into the phone, without meaning to. "You're not calling me, are you?" The response came immediately. "No." "Then what are you doing?" A pause, then, "We're observing the moment you decide to notice." His stomach tightened. Because proof changes things. Fear makes you want to escape. Proof tells you there is nowhere to go. From that night on, he understood one truth. The calls didn't react to events. They reacted to awareness, and once awareness crossed a certain point, it didn't fade. It transferred. He looked at the phone, at the time, at the silence waiting for him to think again, and for the first time, he wondered something far worse than before. Not why the calls existed, but how many moments like this had already been observed by someone else who never realized it. He didn't go looking for others. He tried to convince himself there couldn't be any. It started with something small, an old forum thread, buried deep, unindexed, no title, just a date. He almost closed it. Then he saw the time, 12:17. The post was short, too short to explain anything. "I keep getting the calls, same time every night. It feels like they already know I'm listening." No replies, no follow-ups. The account had been deleted. He searched the time instead of the words. 12:17 a.m. Dozens of results appeared, most of them broken, archived, half missing. Different platforms, different years, same pattern. The posts never described what happened. They described how it felt. Anyone else notice the silence before it rings? It waits for me to stop moving. I thought it was random until it wasn't. None of them ended properly. Some stopped mid-sentence. Some never returned after one reply. Some accounts vanished entirely. He found one audio clip, not linked, not labeled, just a file name. He hesitated before pressing play. The voice was calm, too calm. "I don't think it's calling me," the person said. "I think it's checking whether I notice." Pause. "If you're hearing this, it means I answered too long." The recording ended. He sat back because the voice sounded familiar. Not the words, the tone, the acceptance. That night, the call came again, 12:17. This time, the voice didn't speak immediately. Instead, another sound played, soft, distant. A voice message, the same one he just heard online. He pulled the phone away from his ear. "That person," he said. "Where are they now?" The answer came without hesitation. "They're still here." "Then why can't they speak?" "They're listening." Something in the room shifted, not physically, conceptually. "How many others are there?" he asked. A pause, not long enough to be comforting, enough to form a pattern. He understood then why the posts were scattered, why no one ever explained everything. Listening doesn't encourage sharing. It isolates. The call ended without warning. The room felt emptier than before, not because he was alone, but because he wasn't. He stared at the phone long after the screen went dark, and for the first time he realized the calls weren't rare. They were selective. Not everyone hears them, only those who notice long enough to be noticed back. And once that happens, the silence between calls is no longer empty, it's occupied. The next call didn't feel meant for him. He noticed that before he answered. At 12:17, the phone vibrated the way it always did, once. But the screen was different, not blank, not his name, a name he didn't recognize. He hesitated. That hesitation felt important. The phone kept vibrating, steady, patient, like it wasn't asking, like it was waiting to see what he would do. He answered. The voice didn't greet him. Instead, it said, "This one is not yours." His throat tightened. "Then why am I hearing it?" A pause. "Because you're listening." A sound came through the call. A room. Another person breathing. Someone sitting very still. He could hear it the way you hear your own thoughts when the world goes quiet. "Can they hear me?" he asked. "No," the voice replied. "They can only hear themselves." "Then what am I supposed to do?" Another pause. This one longer. "He's almost ready," the voice said. He notices patterns. He checks the time. He waits. The realization landed slowly. The calls didn't move randomly. They moved forward. "If I hang up," he said, "what happens to him?" The voice answered carefully. "He continues, eventually." "And if I stay?" "Then you help him notice." The room felt smaller, not because anything changed, because responsibility had entered it. He listened, and as he did, he noticed how easily listening turned into guidance. A sound he focused on became clearer. A pause grew longer. The breathing steadied. He wasn't speaking. He didn't need to. The voice returned. "This is how it spreads," it said. "Not by force, by attention." He thought about all the nights he had believed he was alone. How convincing that lie had felt. How comfortable. A question surfaced in his mind, uninvited, unavoidable. How many people would choose the same thing if they were listening right now? The call ended on its own. The phone went dark. He didn't feel the relief. He felt something heavier. participation. At 12:17 the following night, his phone vibrated again. Another name, another moment, another decision that would not feel like one until it was too late. After that night, he stopped pretending this was temporary. The calls kept coming. Not every night, not on a schedule he could predict, but always at the same time, 12:17. What changed was what he could hear. Not more voices, less of everything else. It started with small gaps, moments when he realized he hadn't noticed the room for several seconds. He would blink, and the clock had advanced without him remembering the minute in between. During one call, the voice asked him a question. "What do you hear right now?" He listened. The phone, his breathing, the faint hum in the walls. "And outside?" it asked. He paused. "I don't know," he said. "That's new," the voice replied. He began to test himself. He stood by the window during the day. Cars passed. People spoke. Life moved, but it felt flatter, distant, like watching through glass that was slowly thickening. That night, the call didn't speak at all. It played something instead, an audio file, not labeled, not explained. A room, very quiet, someone sitting, breathing slow, measured. Minutes passed, no movement, no sound of discomfort, just presence. "Who is that?" he asked. "They listened long enough," the voice said. "And now?" "And now they notice everything except what they're standing inside." His chest tightened. "You mean they're stuck?" The reply came softly. "No, they're functioning." That word felt deliberate. The voice continued. "They go to work. They respond when spoken to. They sleep. They eat." A pause, "but they don't interrupt the pattern anymore." He remembered the forum posts, the unfinished sentences, the calm voices. "So this is the end?" he asked. "For some," the voice said. "For others, it's the beginning." Another sound played, a different recording, someone laughing, too suddenly, too briefly, then silence. "They heard something they couldn't ignore," the voice explained, "and they tried to warn someone else." "And?" he asked. The pause this time was uncomfortable. "Warning breaks the process," the voice said. "Listening continues it." He felt the weight of that distinction, because he understood now why sharing never worked, why no one ever explained everything. Explaining pulls attention outward. Listening turns it inward. The call ended. The room felt unchanged. That was the worst part. He checked the time. 12:18, 1 minute passed, and he realized something that made his hands shake. The cost of listening wasn't disappearance. It was gradual replacement. You don't vanish. You're still there. You just stop being the one who decides what matters. The next call came on a night that felt deliberately ordinary. No tension, no build-up, just routine. He noticed at first how normal everything felt. Right before the phone vibrated, 12:17, once. The screen lit up. Another name, another person, another moment moving toward awareness. He didn't answer immediately. That alone felt wrong, like interrupting something that had already begun. The phone kept vibrating, not louder, not faster, patient. He thought about the voices he had heard, the calm ones, the quiet ones, the ones that never explained themselves. He thought about how easily listening had felt like understanding, and how easily understanding had turned into participation. The voice spoke, even though he hadn't answered. "You don't have to," it said. He closed his eyes. "I know," he replied. The vibration continued. "What happens if I don't?" he asked. The answer came gently. "Nothing stops." "Then what changes?" A pause. "Who notices?" He looked at the phone again, at the name, at the time, at the stillness, waiting for him to confirm it. For the first time since it began, he didn't feel afraid. He felt clear. He placed the phone face down on the table. The vibration continued for several seconds, then it stopped. The room stayed silent. No replacement call, no message, no notification, just absence. He waited. Minutes passed, nothing happened. He checked the time, 12:19. 2 minutes passed. That's when he understood what the final choice really was. Not answering doesn't end the process. It removes you from it. Somewhere else, someone would notice the quiet, notice the pattern, notice the moment stretching just a little too long, and the phone would ring. He stood up. The room felt the same. The world moved the same. But for the first time in weeks, his attention felt his. If you're listening to this now, there's a reason you stayed this long, not because you were scared, because you noticed. The question isn't whether the call is dangerous. It's whether you recognize the moment it asks you to keep listening. Because somewhere tonight, at exactly 12:17, a phone is vibrating, and the only thing it's waiting for is attention.